Picture an apple. Right now, don't overthink it. Some of you just saw it. Red, glossy, maybe turning slightly, catching the light. And some of you saw nothing at all. No shape, no color, just the idea of an apple. Same instruction, two completely different brains. And if you saw nothing, here's the unsettling part. There's a good chance you've spent your whole life not knowing, because you can't compare your inner world to anyone else's. You can only compare words. And the words all match. But before you relax because you saw the apple, don't. Seeing it just means you're standing somewhere on a range you didn't know existed. At one end, people whose minds stay completely dark. At the other, people who see more than you'd believe. By the end of this video, you'll have a real clue about where you sit, and you'll find out the picture in your head was never what you thought it was. Here's how something this basic hid for so long. When a therapist says, go to your safe place, one patient builds a beach, wave by wave, gull by gull. Another just thinks the word beach and waits for something to happen. Both say, okay, I'm there. Nobody notices anything is different. Now multiply that by every classroom, every count sheep, every visualized success. Millions of conversations where the words match and the minds don't. People had been describing this experience for more than a century. But it only got its modern name in 2015. And the name began with a man who lost something he couldn't describe. Scientists came to know him as MX, a man in his 60s who, after a heart procedure, noticed something he couldn't explain to his doctors. He could no longer picture anything. The faces of people he loved, places he'd been. He remembered all of it. The facts were intact, but the pictures were gone. The screen had switched off. Neurologist Adam Zeman studied his case, and when the story spread, something strange happened. Emails started arriving, person after person saying, that's me, except I've been this way my whole life. In 2015, Zeman's team gave the condition a name, built from Greek roots. Aphantasia, without mental images, not blindness, not memory loss, not a lack of imagination or intelligence, just no voluntary pictures in the mind's eye. How common is it? Estimates vary depending on how researchers define it, but a small minority of people appear to live this way, and most of them call their darkness normal. But a name only proves the difference is real. It doesn't explain why a brain refuses a picture when you ask for one. So researchers began testing imagery in the lab. Mental imagery often recruits parts of the brain that are also involved in seeing. But it isn't simply vision played backwards, and science is still working out how a brain paints a picture with no light coming in. Here's what MX's scans showed. When he was asked to generate images, his visual brain areas were far less active than the comparison participants. But when he actually looked at pictures, normal. His vision wasn't broken. The ability to summon a picture on demand was. More recent research points to differences in how visual regions and the brain's control networks work together. But be suspicious of anyone who tells you science found the aphantasia switch. It hasn't. The mechanism is still being mapped. What's easier to map is what life is like without it. Because when you ask these same people about their childhood, the answers get strange. Ask someone with aphantasia about their childhood kitchen. They may still know where the cereal was kept, that the kettle whistled, that the dog waited nearby. But for many, the memory arrives less as a scene and more as facts, sounds, positions, and feelings, knowing without seeing. And this is where aphantasia stops being a curiosity and starts rewriting the textbook. Because most of us assume memory works like footage you replay. It doesn't, for anyone. Memory is a reconstruction, rebuilt fresh every time you reach for it, not a literal replay. Some brains simply skip the visual layer of the rebuild. Here's the twist you won't expect. Many people with aphantasia dream in pictures. Wide awake, they can't summon an apple to save their life. Yet asleep, whole scenes play out. Faces, rooms, skies. Others report stripped-down dreams. Emotion, motion, dialogue, no visuals at all. What that suggests is that voluntary imagery and dreaming don't always move together. As if the projector can sometimes run on its own, even when the remote control is missing. Why? Researchers are still working that out. But here's a question they have started to answer. If the pictures can play without you, what happens to fear? Read someone a scary story. Footsteps behind you, a door creaking open, and their body reacts. Heart rate climbs, palms sweat. They're picturing it, and the picture does the frightening. Run the same experiment on people with aphantasia, and Pearson's team found something remarkable. The bodily fear response stayed largely flat. Not because they didn't understand the threat, but because there was no image to feed it. Show them an actual frightening photo, and they respond like anyone else. Real life lands at full volume. It's specifically the imagined that loses some of its teeth. One caution before anyone celebrates. This does not mean people with aphantasia are protected from trauma or distress. It only suggests that visual imagery can intensify some imagined experiences. One amplifier on the fear channel. present in most brains, quiet in theirs. Now push the dial the other way. Because there's an opposite end nobody talks about. Some people close their eyes and get not darkness, but a fully lit room. Every object sharp, colors accurate, shadows falling correctly. Ask them for the apple and they don't get an impression. They get gloss on the skin, a stem bent slightly left, a tabletop underneath. Some report they can rotate it, zoom in, change the lighting, try it. Right now, the apple from the beginning. Can you turn it? Can you make it green? Some of you just did it, instantly. Some of you felt it slip, blur, fight back. Now be careful with that. A 30-second apple test can't diagnose anyone. Researchers use detailed questionnaires and lab measures for that. But that resistance you felt is a genuine clue about how easily you steer your own imagery. At the vivid end, researchers use the term hyperphantasia, people who report unusually intense voluntary images. And between the blank screen and the movie theater sits everyone else, scattered along a range almost no one knows exists. Which means the strangest part of all this was never the people who see nothing. The strangest part is the assumption. In 1880, a scientist named Francis Galton asked people to simply describe their own minds. Picture your breakfast table, tell me what you see. Some described crisp scenes, bright colors, exact positions, some dim fragments, some nothing at all. The evidence that consciousness isn't standard issue has been sitting in plain sight for 140 years. We just kept assuming everyone meant the same thing by the same words. You've tested yourself twice now. The apple that appeared, or didn't. The turn it made, or refused. That's not a diagnosis. It's a first clue about a range you didn't know you were standing on until 7 minutes ago. Your brain, right now, is running a version of reality no one else will ever access. So whatever appeared when you asked for that apple, that's not how humans think. That's how you think. It is one version,